I read an interesting story. I'm going to welcome George Rosenthal into the fray in a moment, but let me set this up because Juan Williams, who is a Fox contributor, he's not, a conservative. He's always been kind of one of the Democrats on CNN and on Fox. Every once in a while he's on the Five and shows like that. So he says this, and this was written in a publication called The Hill at thehill.com. And that's not a conservative publication, but that doesn't really matter here because it's about something a little different. He says, last week I did something stupid. I looked at the comments section around columns I had written about NASA astronaut Chris Williams' thrilling launch into outer space. The columns told of my pride in a family member's stunning achievement. Most people responded with warmth and congratulations, including readers who disagree with my politics but felt the emotional power of the moment, right? And then came a wave of vitriol. It emerged from social media accounts built to spew bile, attacking me for things unrelated to the piece or my family or even reality. I mentioned this to a friend who asked, hey, Juan, how many of those commentators are even real people? And he said, good question. And the reveal in here is quite interesting. And this is where I'll welcome our friend from ThrottleNet in, George Rosenthal, this afternoon. How are you, George? Always great to hook up with you.
Great to talk to you as well. Thanks so much for having me.
So what he realized here is that he did a little digging and figured out that there is a new feature on X, which is called About This Account. And I guess you can look into where some of these things are coming from. And a lot of the America First and the Patriotic Voice accounts with big followings were operating out of Asia. And some of them were operating out of, Eastern Europe and some in Russia. So these aren't exactly bots, though, are they? Is it something different than bots, or is that what it is?
Yeah, well, it's a combination. So, yes, it's bots. A lot of it is artificial intelligence, and it is perpetrated by human beings. So they will set up bots and artificial intelligence to go out and just start making comments to persuade people or start trouble. And this we're seeing more and more of. And I know there was a conspiracy back in 2016 about the election and Russian interference and yada, yada, but I really do think now where we are in 2025, about to be 26, with artificial intelligence getting it as advanced as it is, I think it's going to be a serious problem. It's starting to influence so many people that really don't check up on the news. They don't double check on what they're reading to make sure that it's even true, and they just read it as gospel. And it could be anything from hate speech to anti-Semitism to things that basically where we've seen where China is involved with trying to make the economy look even worse than it is to persuade the government to stop and slow down tariffs or any type of infringements on their economy. So if they're using this as propaganda, and people that are following it are can fall for it if they do research. And here's the thing: we're running up against an election, and we're in Christmas time. I know. But November is going to be here before you know it.
Oh, it will be. No, I know.
But it's going to be here quick. So that's something we all have to be aware of, because you're going to see more and more of this. And I know just going down the trolling dark tunnels of social media, you'll see videos that have a little watermark that says Sora, S-O-R-A. That is an artificial intelligence video generator. But a lot of these videos don't have the watermark. And you cannot tell. You cannot tell what's real and what's not real. It is crazy.
I'm finding myself every day when I look at audio, and when I send it to Fred and Ethan, we have to look closer because I'm very suspicious. And even being very suspicious and on the outlook for it, I still fall for some of these.
Me too.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, and be careful. If you are on social media, God help you if you read the comments. I feel so sorry for you. Just don't do it. You're going to ruin your life. You're going to ruin your day, because most of this stuff is trolls that may be real, but a lot of it's not even real people. They're just out there using artificial intelligence to go out and say, write as many bad comments on this post as you can, using any type of Gmail accounts that you can do, or however many fake email addresses that it can go out and make. It's got it. And the other thing too is the influence on children that this is having, that we had talked about in the past. But after our last talk, I talked really in depth with my kids right as soon as I hung up the phone with you guys about making sure that anything they put on the internet will be there forever and will be altered by your enemies, by artificial intelligence tools to do you harm. So yes, I think there's going to be a lot of election interference, not in the voting. I think there's going to be a lot of persuasion in people's ideas, the news that's out there to try and change just a little nuance to make them maybe vote different. I think there's targeted toward college kids, because those are the future voters of America. That's what's really happening. I think they're going to start working on the minds of the youth, the 8th, 9th graders, to start to get them to where future elections start to happen, because they can put out these messages. I mean, look at the rise in anti-Semitism. Yeah. I mean, these young children had to have learned this from somewhere. This didn't just pop up in the last 15 years. So where's this all coming from when this wasn't around 20 years ago?
Well, I would say the question now is, well, where is this all going to take us? Because one of the things that Juan Williams says in his piece is, like, we're closer to the point of no return than anyone wants to admit. And you and I and Sue and Fred, we've had these discussions for the past several years, and a lot of them are focused on this very issue. And I said this, I think I said it on the air and to some friends last week. I talked about it. I'm like, half the time I talk to you, I'm like so inspired, George, by all the crazy stuff and the possibilities. And then the other half, you scare the hell out of me. And I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing to our kids and all this stuff? Because the previous conversation that he's referring to is one we had last week on the social media ban for Australia. And, you know, we talked about that in depth, and you said, look, you have images out there. If these kids have images out there, they could be altered. They could be used in the future against you, so you have to be careful.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know, I like Elon Musk in a lot of different ways, but one thing he has to be careful with, he's out there talking about these things, about open free speech and how X is a completely open platform. But on the opposite side of his mouth, he's running Grok, which I'm able to do a lot of really bad things and post it on X. And I need to know that that's being policed. How is X, even though it's an open platform, and I'm all for free speech, but free speech is not AI creating things on its own. And that's where it's going to get. And so where AI is creating bad things because it thinks that's the way the country needs to move in on its own, it will start to think that. So when it does that, it reaches artificial general intelligence and starts to create its own content based on where it thinks we should be. How do you police that? So that's something that social media platforms across the board have to really keep an eye on. As AI gets smarter, how do they control the messaging?
I'm not a huge fan of Tom Friedman, but he's mentioned in this piece by Juan Williams because he says Tom Friedman at the New York Times recently said, we are not divided. We are being divided by companies for profit. And that's kind of hard to argue against.
Absolutely. I would 100% agree with you. Right now, it's a total fight for profit in artificial intelligence, and that is the future. It's all based on that right now. When you have a fight between so many different platforms of AI, I think that's the new war that we're all going to be under. And what kind of content are you going to be receiving and taking into your household every day? What are you going to allow to be your kids to read? What are you going to read that's going to influence you in the next 5 years? You know, you may change a lot of your opinions based on what you're seeing over and over again by swiping up and down on the YouTube shorts or the Facebook shorts. How much of what you're looking at is real? And how much of it's changing your mind over the next 72 months? It's crazy to think about, but everybody needs to be aware of it. Right now, they have no controls over this stuff, and it's not regulated. It's extremely crazy. It's the Wild West when it comes to ideas and content. And everybody just needs to have a clear understanding of what they're looking at and just assume that most of it's fake.
Well, I want to go back to something that you said because you were talking about a tweet or something that comes by, people see it, and then it's not true or it's manipulated or whatever, but they won't take time to realize that, or they'll spread it. That's part of Juan's point is, something goes out there from an account that's got 400,000 followers. One of these is called like MAGA Nation, and it's being run literally out of Eastern Asia. So what the hell, or Eastern Europe. So what the hell is that all about? Right. So look, right. I get worried because I know, I'll use my wife as an example, not to throw her under the bus, but she has, and I've spoken about this, she's gotten a lot more interested in, we've been together for 23 years, right? But she really got fired up in the last couple of years coming out of the pandemic and some of the nonsense with politics and the border. I think the border really got her attention. So she's paying a lot more attention to the news and watching Fox. And I come up at night and she's got Gutfeld on, and I'd rather turn politics off. But she will see things a lot on social media, on Twitter in particular, and she'll send them to me. And sometimes they're just not true. So there are a lot of people out there that see things, and it could be something that's not true. Right. Or again, we just talked about this with Curtis Howe, could just be lacking context, right? But who wants to spend time when you're scrolling through, reel after reel? Who needs context?
Right.
George, that's so old school context. We don't need that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and imagine, the kids, and I don't mean like 12-year-olds. I mean like 18, 19, 20-year-olds who have the attention span of a gnat. How in the world are you going to capture their attention to tell them what's real and what's not? And so it's going to be extremely hard to control that reality of what is real and true versus what is not. And it's amazing to see the owners, Zuckerberg and Elon, get out there and say, oh, we need to protect. But at the same time, they're doing this stuff and not protecting. They're not looking at any of this stuff. They're not forcing it to where you have to be 16 years old or older to have a social media account. Thankfully, YouTube forces you to at least be 13 to have a YouTube channel. But if you don't show your face, they don't know that you're not 13.
Right. How do they police that to make sure that someone's not 11 or 12 on there?
That's it. Well, so if you do show your face on YouTube, they do have facial recognition and scanners that will pull that up and say, oh, this kid looks really young. Let's at least investigate. So that is one thing. But you can get around that by not showing your face. And on a YouTube channel, you can stream, your online game, or maybe you're playing Minecraft and you want to be a streamer and you're 12. You can do that. But if you get caught, your account's going to be banned. But it's just that we have to do more policing of this content. And I know I hate to say that word because that is not my upbringing.
No, but I get it.
We get it.
I get it, though. I do.
mean, couldn't I put up a fake picture if I were a kid anyway, and the AI could make me look older? I mean, we've been messing with AI photos, and it's outrageous. I mean, it's almost good, but not quite. Like, you make us into superheroes, and Mark and I are wearing jeans, and somebody's mouth isn't quite right. But eventually, that's just going to be perfect.
Look, it made me look like I had chest and biceps, so I was thrilled with it. I love AI.
In fact, our marketing director today was playing around with some pictures of a location. We then said, okay, let's put he had a table put there. Then said, okay, let's put a ThrottleNet team member sitting at a chair at the table. Then let's put the logo on the man's shirt. Oh, that logo didn't look so good. Let's change the logo to look more embroidered and go with the shadowing of the shirt. And I mean, by the time he's done, it didn't look like an illustration. It looked like a person took a photograph of a human being sitting at a table in a chair in the sun with shadows and our logo embroidered on their shirt, and it never existed.
This is where you're scaring the hell out of me again.
Scary.
I'm telling you, it just scares the hell out of me. George, you're always great. You have a great Christmas. Thank you so much for everything this year. ThrottleNet.com if you want to check them out, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, George.
Absolutely.
All right,
Merry
take care.
Christmas.
We'll see
Happy
you.
New Year.
Cut of the day coming up.
Traffic from the 97.1 FM Talk Traffic Center.